I'd like to call this regular council meeting to order. Before we go to the invocation, I want to acknowledge that the land upon which we are situated this evening is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe people, many of whom continue to reside in our community and add to the richness of our community life. Would you all please rise for the invocation?
We meet to serve our community and endeavor to be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. Let us be concerned only for what will promote good government. May we bring to our council chamber minds that think and hearts that feel, so that in our deliberations we may display imagination, wisdom, and courage, and the will to do our work for the good of all.
Amen.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, the roll call, please.
All members of council are present, your worship, with the exception of Councillor Butler. He'll be here in 10 minutes.
Okay, and I understand she's going to be arriving shortly. There's no addendum this evening, just some very brief announcements, the first of which is that although Remembrance Day is about 3 and a bit weeks away, the annual Royal Canadian Legion Remembrance Day Poppy campaign begins next week, October the 28th, and I would encourage everyone to buy a poppy and wear a poppy in recognition of the sacrifices made by our Canadian military veterans over the years. Which leads me to the second item, which is the election, which I'll speak very briefly on. The military sacrifices made by the men and women of our Canadian military were made so that we could enjoy the democracy that we live in. The greatest right in a democracy is the right to vote and elect those who will lead you. So I encourage everyone to vote on October the 24th. If you haven't already, my understanding is around 2,000 people have voted in the advance poll, 2,000 residents of Fort Erie, which means that there's still a fair number yet to vote. So please take the time, honor our military veterans, and vote on October the 24th. My final announcement, and I'll be very careful about this because I don't want this to be misconstrued in any way, but I want to comment very briefly, and I'll give each of you an opportunity to comment as well if you wish. This is the final meeting of the 2018 to 2022 Town of Fort Erie Municipal Council. I want to assure all of you that it's been a great honor and a privilege for me to serve with each and every one of you. I think that we've done, in my own view, and I've got a bit of understanding of what a council does and how they can perform, that this council has done very well. Not only were we required to manage our own administrative affairs during the course of a 4-year period, but also to manage a worldwide pandemic and its effect on our community. I just want to say that for those of you who are not seeking re-election, I want to wish each of you the very best going forward. And for those of you who are seeking re-election, regardless of the outcome, I want you to know that you should be very proud of your accomplishments. So that's, those are my comments. And Councillor Lubberts, I don't know whether you wanted to say anything regarding our final council meeting or not.
No, I don't have much to say, Mayor Redekop, other than the fact that just want to thank everybody that supported me over the years. And I'm particularly proud of some of the accomplishments that I was able to bring forward to this year council, especially Bay Beach. I know it was controversial, but one thing that I've noticed over the years is very few councillors can hang their hat on something that changes their ward in a dramatic way. And I think that with Bay Beach, that's exactly what happened. We, back in 2003, when we started the campaign pushing for Bay Beach to be a public park, that's what the Friends of Crystal Beach, who was the driving force behind all of that, and the residents of Crystal Beach, they predicted exactly what's happened with Bay Beach. And I can truly say that I think I can hang my hat on that. And not too many times a councillor can say that. So thank you. I want to thank everybody that supported me. And I want to thank my critics as well, because they toughened my skin and I learned a lot from being criticized, and I learned a lot from winning arguments and debates, and I'm proud of my accomplishments. Thanks.
More than welcome, Councillor Lubberts. Councillor McDermott.
Thank you, Your Worship. All I can tell you is that I've enjoyed the last 8 years on council, and especially this one, because we do many things in our ward that people really don't know about. Councillor Lubberts said, well, we can hang your hat on this. Well, I can hang my hat on bringing Erie International Academy to this community, which is over the next few years going to get bigger and bolder. And so I'm very proud of that, and I'm proud of the people that I work with. We don't argue much on this council. We're more into getting the job done, and that's been one of the things that clearly keeps me thinking that I should keep going. So it's a pleasure to work with everybody here, and despite what might happen in the election, whether you win or whether you lose, it's not going to change my life at all. I would go right back to volunteering and working on committees of council in the future if I'm not reelected. But hopefully things will carry on so I can see the Coal Docks Park put together over the next term, and that would be a happy ending to my career. So appreciate all of you have done for me. Thank you.
Councillor Zanko.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do have quite a bit of thanks to say. First, I wanted to thank my constituents and every community member. Your trust and guidance and your direction and continuing support is something that I never once took for granted, and I will be forever grateful. You've all taught me so much in a lifetime. I'll never forget this experience my term on council gave me, and I really do thank every single one of you. To the mayor, I think you've taught me so much, you probably will never realize the lessons that you've taught me. You have been an incredible mentor, and I know that I'm not the only one that can say that. Thank you very much. To my colleagues, thank you for all your support over the past 8 years, some 4. I know we haven't seen eye to eye. We have had some heated discussions, but we've all remained professional to one another, and I'm very grateful for that. I can honestly say that I admire the skills of every single council member here. The councilors that are seeking re-election, I would be so honored to have every one of you as my councilor. You guys are very good councilors. To staff, your constant patience and support, and I mean constant patience, it's incredible. We were a new council, well, mostly a new council, a bunch of newbies making big decisions in our town, and I can appreciate how terrifying that must have been for all of you with all of your experience. So thanks so much for always guiding us and trusting us. Without you, I would have never survived the past 8 years, and I'll never forget that. Thank you. Just a quick thanks to my husband and children as well. Their support and many times encouragement when I needed it helped this 8 years be definitely more enjoyable. And just a note for the newly elected council, if by chance they're watching this, I just want to say appreciate every moment. Listen intensely, and I mean intensely. Have gratitude that you've had the rare honor of serving your community, because your community believes in you and they trust you with their most cherished assets. You're being trusted with the things that impact their families the most and their livelihood the most. Never forget, no matter what, and never take that for granted. And if I can ever be of assistance, I'm always happy to do so. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Zanko. We'll come back to Councillor Butler shortly. We'll go to Councillor Dubanow.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for giving each of us the opportunity to just briefly speak and reflect on our term here on council. I wasn't expecting to say much other than to just thank everyone for the 4 years. I was the new guy here, hadn't served on council before, hadn't had an opportunity to do this, and broken apart like some of the other members of council have. So this was a challenge and an experience for me. It's been a dream come true. I'm hoping to return. I'm running for re-election, and I hope to be here on Inauguration Day on November 15th, getting sworn in again. Is it the 4th? I thought it was the 15th. 15th, yeah. Sorry. All I want to say is I want to thank everyone for everything they've done to personally help me over the last 4 years. The challenges of the pandemic, especially being a young father with kids who were out of school and our whole lives had been turned upside down, it was a very difficult time. And each and every member of this council was there for me and helped me get through it, was there to talk to, was there to speak to. You know, we have disagreements on political issues, and that's fine. But as individuals, we work very well together. And, you know, I think Fort Erie is so fortunate to have, you know, individuals in leadership, from the mayor and our staff here all the way down. So lucky to have what we have and the leadership that we have in place. This is actually more harder to talk about than I thought it would be. So I'll just end right there, Your Worship. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Dubanow. Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Mayor Redekop. As people know, I've sat on a number of councils. This council worked very well together to move things forward. We always showed respect for each other and for each other's point of view, even though we may not have agreed with it, or shared it, we showed respect for it. And in most cases, compromises were reached through constructive dialogue. I hope that the next council will be as fortunate as to work as well together as this council has, and I will miss the three of you that are leaving, because it has been a good council and we have worked well together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Noyes. And Councillor Butler, as you may have gleaned, we're just going around giving every councillor an opportunity to say a few words if they wish. This is your opportunity.
It was.
Trying to put us to sleep.
Yes. Thank you for the opportunity. I just, a couple of things that I'd like to pass on to the new members of council who are fresh and don't have the experience is that I made a lot of mistakes in the first 4 years of doing this, and I worked my butt off. Like I literally put in a good 40 hours a week, and I still didn't get the gist of it. And then one day it clicks in for you, and then you realize, oh, I probably shouldn't have said or done a couple of things back then in the history, but it's the history that gives you the power to move forward. And when you move forward with gratitude, it's an antidote to fear. And I think that as you progress through your career as a councillor or whatever position you may hold, the most important thing is to help change the lives of those individuals that have reached out and tapped on your shoulder and said, I have this problem. And as long as you do what Mayor Redekop sagely advised me, listen to your gut, and if it doesn't feel good, then you know it's the wrong thing, and if it feels great, then you know you're proceeding in the right direction. So that's my advice to them. On my final note, I'd like to thank everybody around this council because you are all really wonderful. And as everybody said, we may have had our political differences, but we were respectful, we were diligent in the cause, and we all pulled together when it mattered the most. And the last thing that I want to say is that we are so fortunate, and I say this all the time, so fortunate to have the staff that we have and the leadership that we have within this municipality, because without them, I think that we would truly be at a disadvantage. But we have excelled through many, many adversities and obstacles, and they've always pulled us ahead of the curve, and we're trendsetters, and the mayor can attest to that from our AMO conference. So I thank everybody from the bottom of my heart, because everybody is wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Butler. And as several of you have mentioned, a great deal of credit goes to the staff. We have ideas, we have directions we'd like to go, but it's the staff that implements those, and we've been very fortunate to have excellent staff in all the departments. And they're to be commended. So regardless of what happens next Monday, they will continue on, and that's good news for the municipality. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? There being none, There are no notices of upcoming public meetings to be given, and that takes us to the Regional Councillor's report. Good evening, Councillor Insina.
Good evening, Mayor Redekop, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, staff. As I've done in the past, I will keep my remarks short and brief, but this time I threw in heartfelt. It has been an honor and a privilege to sit here with you. It's been almost 4 years, and I thank you for that. I thank you for allowing me to sit here and give my reports, some that didn't want to hear, but others that did want to hear, but what was transpiring in the region. You should all be very proud of your accomplishments. To those councillors who will be not be returning, Councillor Lubberts, Zanko, and Butler, who are not seeking re-election, thank you for your service. To those of you, and us, I should say, who are running again for re-election, I say to you, good luck, and I hope we can all work together again. To Mr. CAO and members of staff, thank you for keeping my ass out of the fire.
You know, we do have protocols here.
Yes, I understand. But then again, thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor Redekop, and all of you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Councillor Insina. That then takes us to the, there are no presentations or delegations. That takes us to the consent agenda. Are there any items that anyone wishes removed from the consent agenda? If not, then Councillor McDermott, I understand you have the resolution dealing with the consent agenda?
Thank you, Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Dubanow. The council approves the consent agenda items as recommended.
Are there any questions or comments? I had a couple of questions with respect to the Traffic Coordinating Committee meeting notes. There were a number of requests that related to speeding, and I'm just wondering what the time frame might be for those matters to be dealt with. The minutes indicate that they'll be deferred until there's I guess some further steps in the traffic calming initiative that's been undertaken.
Mr. Mayor, so there were a number of streets identified in the administration report with respect to traffic calming. We're gathering data, speed, and traffic counts on those streets right now. The report also identified 2 test streets that we would run through the traffic calming policy on a mock drill. Report back to council on the results of those. We're expecting to bring that report forward in the early spring of 2023 and finalize the traffic calming policy shortly thereafter, pending no hiccups in the process. And then following that, the streets that were identified in the admin report will run through the full policy. So that would be later in the spring and likely into summer. And then following that, we will have developed an application form for residents to apply for traffic calming measures, or at least studies, through this process, and we can get to attack those.
And I presume that the timing on that's really subject to the priority that the new council may put on that as an issue?
Certainly, as I've said multiple times, we serve at the infinite wisdom of council.
Right. And is there an opportunity for council, the new council, to consider with staff advice some type of policy for signage in residential neighborhoods with respect to traffic speeds? Because we hear that has been a problem throughout the community.
Certainly. I suspect that many of the applications will be denied for physical measures,
speed bumps, traffic, or curb bump outs, et cetera. That would fall into the education program. We are planning in the 2023 operating budget to purchase another few units of our mountable traffic vision thing.
Electronic displays that show the speed?
Yeah, you should be an engineer. Better than the thing, I guess, eh? A few more of those, which are part of the education program of traffic calming.
Okay, I was thinking that was a technical term that you were using. And again, the utilization of physical speed calming is going to be something that will be subject to council's decision.
That's correct.
Okay. Any other questions with respect to the items in the consent agenda? If none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the recommendations and the reports? None opposed? That is carried. That then takes us to report CS 17, nope, sorry, report PDS 72 for 2022, which was previously adjourned and previously moved on October the 3rd. Wait a sec. Yeah, so that's already had a mover, Madam Clerk. PDS 72 was on the floor. It was postponed, but that had a mover, I believe.
Yes, it was moved by you, Your Worship.
Okay,
Spoke to it first.
right, okay. So that report is on the floor. We did receive a memo. Are there any further questions or comments? Councillor Lubberts.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Redekop. Just a couple of things I didn't see in here, and maybe it's embedded in the agreement with the
Consultant?
consultants. But I'm hoping that we've had some past deliberations with focus groups and council and so forth, and I hope all of that is brought forward as well with the new focus group, so that they can go over what we've already discussed in the past. And along with that, I don't see anything in here where the focus group is going to be including ward councillors, and one in particular that should be there, I think Ward 5, because that's where most of the licenses are coming from. And I believe we can have probably 3 councillors on that committee without having quorum. So I'd like to see something like that. And I don't know that anything further than that, other than reading through the report and looking at what they're trying to focus on. It did say something about the timeline and the agenda to move everything forward was a little aggressive, and I think we need to take caution there, because I don't think that we should be putting any timeline on the next council that comes forward to work on this issue. We got to get it right, and I don't know that it should be us putting them under that pressure to get it done at a certain time frame.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lubberts. And I know that Mr. Miller's not here. Mr. CAO, do you have any comments in reference to Councillor Lubberts' comments?
Yeah, and so just to clarify, the intention of the consultant would be to review some of the background information that you referred to, so it's a great comment. And the second one is the focus group would be held with all current members of council, because you've been through the short-term rental discussions to provide some vision to the consultant prior to them doing focus groups publicly. So that is part of the process.
Councillor Lubberts?
So you're saying that, because, I mean, we've met with the consultants last week.
Right.
Are you saying that the current councils today are going to be part of the focus group after the election?
I don't believe that's what he's saying, Mr. McQueen.
No, so the focus group that you were part of will help to formulate now
All right,
questions
yeah,
that
yeah,
will be posed to the public focus groups going forward. So your input will be used in formulating the next phase, which is the public focus groups.
Yeah, that's the composition of the 21 people that are on the list here.
Yes.
That they will get all that information so that they can read it before they have any meetings themselves. That's what I'm trying to get at. We've had some discussion and we've got notes and everything. We need to make sure that this focus group gets all those notes from the past groups that have discussed the short-term rentals so that they get a good, clear view of what we've been already thinking. Is that what you're saying?
Mr. McQueen?
So I don't believe that the members of the focus group coming in will have all the background information, but the consultant will provide some context to them on the background that's led to where things are at, and they'll also be providing some background on what council's focus group session has, basically looked to get clarity from the public on.
Councillor Lubberts?
Yes, and then the next council, like you said, you're going to include all the councillors from the next council. Okay,
Right.
all right, thanks.
Any other questions? Councillor Noyes?
Thank you, Mayor Redekop. I'm a bit concerned about the composition of the group, seeing that there's 9 that don't live in Fort Erie. And I know we've had that, we touched base on that issue with when we talked with the consultants. 8 that reside outside of Fort Erie, and I think that's a concern for me because it takes up it's a big proportion of the group. But I also understand, and perhaps I've misunderstood at the meeting that we had, that this group isn't meeting as a group, as like a committee, but the consultants will be meeting with, let's say, the people who are non-industry or rental owners as separate groups, so to speak, and talking to them individually and as smaller groups to get their point of view, like non-owners, owners, that type of thing, as opposed to a full committee where everybody meets at the same time. Perhaps I misunderstood, but I understood, that's my understanding of it. And then that the consultants will then come up with what these different, like owners, non-owners, short-term renters, non-short-term renters, neighbors, that type of thing, would come up with a recommendation, and they would have reviewed all the information that Councillor Lubberts was referring to. And I guess also understand that because it's a zoning issue, like land use zoning, that this will come to the public for input also. So I'm somewhat skeptical, I must say, but I'm willing to see the process through, but I do have concerns about the composition, and I think that perhaps needs to be tweaked a little bit, that there be more residents of Fort Erie, owners or non-owners of short-term rentals included in the composition. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Noyes, just to refer to the memo that we received, it indicates that the study process was designed to collect a diverse range of opinions based on the council workshops. That would be the interviews that the consultants had with members of council. The consultant will formulate the discussion objectives and select any relevant participants in the identified group to include in subsequent focus group meetings. So I believe the intent is for the consultant to sift through comments that we have provided and then determine which of the 21 applicants should be included and how much weight to provide to any information they provide. Is that your understanding? Okay, thank you. Councillor Zanko.
Thank you. I was just going to say I do share the same concerns as Councillor Noyes. When I did talk with the consultant, though, it kind of did bring me some comfort because, just as the mayor had mentioned, the consultant did confirm that really this is a non-decision-making committee and they won't even be providing recommendations. Everything will be going through the consultant. And the consultant seems highly experienced in this regard. My initial concern especially was the non-residents. But, the consultant did bring to my attention that sometimes a non-resident may have experience in this particular topic and what's worked and hasn't worked in their municipality. So when they brought it to me that way, I thought, that is a good point. But I agree. I do hope that it goes to the community for additional consultation, of course, and I know I'll be following this very closely because we've all had many, many concerns that we've received in this regard. That was all. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other member of council? Before I go back to Councillor Lubberts, is there anyone else? No? Councillor Lubberts?
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Redekop. Just to follow up on the comments from Councillor Noyes, did I not read in here that even with this year focus group, that there will be some public consultation before they get a final report? So I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that there would be an open house with the general public outside the focus group.
That's my understanding. Mr. McQueen?
Yeah, there will be a public process because the recommendation coming back will have planning implications, and so we'll be into looking at planning changes that will require, the same sort of process we'd go through for zoning changes.
Yeah, okay. All right, thanks.
Anything further? I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the recommendation? None opposed? That is carried. That takes us then to new business and inquiries, and Councillor Butler, you have the next resolution.
I do, thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott that Council accepts the resignations of Patty Mountain, John Arbour, and Karen Arbour from the Ridgeway Business Improvement Area Board of Management effective November 24th, 2022, and further that Council directs staff to proceed with filling the vacancies in accordance with the procedural bylaw. Can I speak to that?
Did you say you want to say something?
Can I?
Of course.
Thank you. I just want to thank John and Karen Arbour for keeping the downtown core beautiful. And I also wanted to thank Patty Mountain because she has been with the board for many years, off and on, but she was the glue for the Ridgeway BIA in terms of keeping it all together and keeping us organized. And I don't think that it would have been half as successful without her. So I hope that there will be some kind of recognition for her because she has put a genuine desire to see that downtown core successful. And when it's in your heart, it just shows. So thank you.
Yeah, no, those comments are completely true. She's been around as long as I can remember, and she's been the glue for not just the BIA, she's been the glue on many things. So I've made a note of that, and I do think she should be given some special recognition for her years of service. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Noyes?
Thank you, Mayor Redekop. With the new council also comes the appointment of new committees. And I'm just wondering what would be the proper timing in regards to perhaps reviewing the criteria for some of the committees. And one of the suggestions I would have is that we request for all those who are applying for positions that we have a little bit more information if they currently sit on a committee, what position they held, so that a lot of times we don't know these individuals, and there's not a lot of information on their resume that they send in. And I think it would be helpful if when we're choosing to have a little bit more information on what positions they held on the current committees if they're reapplying. I don't know what the timing with that would be, and I think some of the criteria has changed too. I know for the Senior Advisory Committee that some of the groups don't exist anymore. So perhaps reviewing them before the new council starts making appointments. Thank you.
Yeah, historically, there's been a period of time following the election before the inauguration for applications to be made, et cetera. And usually on the inauguration evening, there are appointments to the committees. I don't believe that's going to happen this year because of the very short time frame between the election and the inauguration. So that will provide staff and the new council with an opportunity to look at some of these things and hopefully come up with a process that allows for more people to be aware of the fact that there are openings and for council and staff to make sure that the criteria, the terms of reference are in order. Anyone else? All those in favor then of the resolution put forward by Councillor Butler, none opposed, That is carried. Councillor McDermott, you have the next resolution.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Dubanow, that Council accepts the resignation of Logan Steele from the Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee, and further that Council directs staff to proceed with filling the vacancy in accordance with the procedural bylaw.
Are there any questions or comments? I would say that each of the members of the Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee have been very engaged, and they've really been helpful. I'm hoping that going forward, their role will be a little bit more important in terms of them looking at some of the things that council is doing to provide council with a perspective from youth. So hopefully there will be a good number of applicants going forward. All those in favor of the resolution? None opposed, that is carried. And Councillor Butler, you have the next resolution.
I do, and I'm very excited about this one. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott that Council appoint Susan Atkinson to the Ridgeway Business Improvement Area Board of Management for the period ending November 14th, 2022.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. Are there any other inquiries or matters of new business? Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to follow up on a question that I had asked Lincoln County Humane Society when he was here presenting with respect to the sly fox that was in trouble health-wise, and just wanted to let everybody know that it was official late last week that they finally caught up with him, and now he is getting that rehabilitation that he needs to be healthy and then hopefully released once he is.
How did you describe that fox? Yeah, that's what I thought you said. That's not a malady, that's a characteristic, that's a personality trait. They're all hard to catch. Okay, any other items of new business? I had one with respect to an inquiry that we received during the week regarding a streetlight that needed replacement. We made an inquiry of Mr. Walsh, who was able to provide a list of streetlights that needed to be replaced. Mr. Walsh, what's the status of that? I know that when we received the list, there were about 10 that had been highlighted out of maybe 40. What's the status of that?
Mr. Mayor, I think the number was 49 streetlights that we had reported that were out. I spoke with my admin today, who received a message late Friday from our repair contractor, Fairway Electric, that all on that list had been repaired.
And then I have a follow-up question. There is a light out. I don't know whether this was one of them. I didn't check that list completely, but there's a light out on the portion of Highway 3 that's under the control of the Ministry of Transportation. Is that a street light regardless that the town of Fort Erie would be responsible for?
I'm sorry, without the specific location, I can't answer that.
Okay.
Some are under the control of the MTO, some are under our control.
Okay, I'll provide that information to you.
Okay. If I may, Mayor?
Yep.
We have developed a great reporting tool for our residents to report streetlight outages. If you go to forterie.ca, type in streetlights into the search bar, you can report the streetlight that's out, and even with an approximate location, we can narrow it down from there. Saves everybody a lot of time.
So forterie.ca,
Type
Type in
streetlights
streetlights.
into the search bar,
Search.
and it will come up. Thank you.
thank you. Are there any other inquiries? If not, then that takes us to motions, and Councillor Dubanow, you have a motion.
I do, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott that Council directs that site plan approval for the proposed self-storage facility at 625 Garrison Road and 0-10389 Helena Street to be reinstated to council. And if I may speak to that briefly, Your Worship. Thank you. Yeah, this just comes about with the storage facility. I'm sure many individuals have seen the sign that has been placed there along the road access off Garrison Road. I have full confidence that staff are going to ensure that the site plan is done properly and takes into account the unique character of that intersection. As many know, we have some new commercial facilities there. There's some proposed, higher density housing in the area. A storage facility is kind of, a little different than what you'd expect. And when you look at the active transportation plans and everything else, I just think it's beneficial just for council to have a second look at this, just to make sure all the Ts are crossed, the Is are dotted, and that if there's anything we can do to ensure that this major intersection in a commercial area of Fort Erie the site is done properly. I think it deserves us having a second look at that. So that's why I've put this forward, Your Worship, and I hope council supports this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address this? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor? None opposed? That is carried. There are no other motions. We do have notice of motion, but since this is the last meeting of council, I guess it's too late. Okay, that takes us to the bylaws. Are there any bylaws that anyone wishes removed from the package? Councillor McDermott?
Yes, 136-2022.
Any others? If not, then Councillor Lubberts, you have the resolution for first and second reading of the bylaw package. So that will be the package less 136-2022.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Redekop. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott that the bylaw package containing bylaw 133-2022 to enact an amendment to the official plan adopted by bylaw number 150-06 for the town of Fort Erie planning area, amendment number 64, 124 Windmill Point Road, Craig and Catherine Kuhn, owners. Bylaw 134-2022 to amend zoning bylaw number 12990 as amended, 124 Windmill Point Road, Craig and Kathy Kuhn, owners. 135-2022 to deem part of certain registered plan of subdivision not to be a registered plan of subdivision. 3842 Disher Street, Don Hang, owner. 137-2022 to amend Parks and Beaches bylaw number 119-03, Dogs in Park. And bylaw number 138-2022 to amend animal bylaw number 73-2022, Dogs in Parks. And bylaw 139-2022 to authorize the execution of a subdivision agreement with 2538070 Ontario Limited, Bruce Ivanchuk, Nye Road subdivision, is given first and second reading.
All those in favor? None opposed? That is carried. That bylaw package as amended is on the floor for any questions or comments. Councillor Noyes?
Thank you, Mayor. I am glad to see 137 to 138, the dogs and parks. I've had a lot of people when I'm going door to door very pleased that that is now a possibility, and they're very much looking forward to doing it legally. Thank you.
Anyone else? Then we will go back to you, Councillor Noyes, for third and final reading of the amended bylaw package.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Dubanow that bylaws number 133-2022, 134-2022, 135-2022, 137-2022, 139-2022 are given third and final reading to be signed by the mayor and the clerk under the corporate seal.
Missed 138. You need to include 138-2022.
And 138-2022, then I guess I should not have included 136.
You didn't.
I didn't, okay.
No. You got that right. All right. So you've got the bylaw package as amended for third and final reading. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed? That is carried. Back to you, Councillor Lubberts, for first and second reading of bylaw
Yes,
number 136.
thank you very much, Mayor Redekop. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott that bylaw number 136-2022 to designate one Burns Place as being of cultural heritage value of interest is given first and second reading.
All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. That bylaw is on the floor for questions or comments. Councillor McDermott.
Your worship, last time we talked about this, I know that Councillor Noyes and myself felt that there was enough kind of weird things going on with this property because of the fact that it had a couple of owners. It was still historic then. And then we have a new owner who bought the property and wasn't aware basically of the historic nature of it. And he had different plans for the property. So, it's my thought that being that those are the circumstances that, we should be having conversations conversations with the owner to discuss maybe if there's some common ground that we can go through with this. I'm not saying that it's not historic. I'm not saying it shouldn't be designated. But I find this just like I said last time with the road widening in Crystal Beach on a piece of property that somebody never ever thought that would happen. And I'm sure that this is the case here. So, it's hard for me to vote for this if we're not going to have this conversation, because I think it's fair to the owner and fair to us to ease our mind. I mean, I lose sleep over silly things. It is a silly thing in my mind. It's not silly for the owner. I know it's not silly for the neighbors, but it's it's a thing that. To me, when a person buys a piece of property, I think it should be flagged that this is historic. This could be possibly historic in nature, because you could go out and buy a piece of property, buy it, and not be able to maintain a historic designation financially. I mean, they get pretty costly after a while. So, I would have liked to have at least that conversation with the owner. Just to be fair, I just think it's just sheer fairness. At the end of the day, if this is the way it's going to go, that's fine. But not having that conversation really bothers me, because you're buying a pig in a poke nowadays. If it's not flagged, if you don't know about it, it's to me, it's just not fairness in any stretch of the imagination. So I guess my question would be, through you, Your Worship, to the CAO is, even if this is approved tonight, will there be an opportunity to, initiate conversations with the owner on this property? Because maybe this property and whatever the owner wants to do to the property could coexist. That's my question, Your Worship.
Yeah, so Councillor McDermott, the answer to your question is yes, there's always opportunities for dialogue. In this particular circumstance, there's been a lot of information about how we got to where we got. And the reality is that the municipality can proceed without the approval of the owner on this type of designation. The best course of action for the owner would be to file the appeal, and like any litigation, there is always lots of opportunity for discussion and dialogue between the parties. So the owner is a party, the municipality is a party, and the objective would be to try to come up with some type of resolution to avoid an actual hearing that meets the needs of both parties. So the answer to your question is yes.
May I just have one more?
Sure.
Okay, because here's the thing. If he appeals and he has to go through a whole pile of, you have to go through the lawyers to go to appeal this. So you go to a lot of extra costs for no reason when we could have that conversation beforehand. And that's all I'm asking is for that little opportunity, that window of opportunity before you have to get the lawyers involved and go to a hearing, because, that's more cost. So, if that's not possible, and if I'm not being reasonable, maybe you can share that with me.
Well, I believe we got here. I'm not sure that you're remembering how we got to where we are, which involved the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority being involved because of activity on the property. So I think that there's a larger picture here than you may be focusing on. But Councillor Lubberts has his hand up. Perhaps he can speak next. We can come back to you if you wish.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Redekop. Just to go back, was there not a deadline that we had to meet that if we didn't proceed, that I think sometime in November, then our position is abandoned. So I'm not in favor of delaying this. And like you said yourself, Mayor Redekop, if you, once you go through the process, there's the opportunity to have some dialogue. And I'm sure that the appeals committee or the appeals board, they're always looking for some kind of resolution. And when that resolution comes through, or some kind of compromise rather, through the two parties with the appeals board, then that's the chance to have that dialogue. But from what I gathered from our last meeting and the discussion that we had, there was attempts to have that dialogue with the owners, and somehow that dialogue failed. So I think that we should just continue moving forward and allow the opportunity for that discussion to happen through the appeals board. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Zanko and then Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do remember how we got here as well. And, you know, it's a tough one for me because I'm really never in favor of something that forces a resident to do something. But again, I do know that how we got here. I also know that based on the, you know, the correspondence back and forth, that unfortunately the residents, they do not agree with this designation. And from my understanding, although they're open to working with us, but I think they have other intentions for the property, so I don't know how much compromise will be made. I would support delaying it if it doesn't lose our position. I think that, you know, if there was an opportunity for the residents again to meet with staff and continue that dialogue to see if by chance some sort of a consensus could be made, I would be happy to support postponing it, but it's my understanding, like Councillor Lubberts had said, that it does abandon the situation. So I just wanted to get some confirmation on that.
Ms. Hanson, you're here.
He's laughing. Through you, Mayor Redekop, Councillor Zanko, you are correct, and Councillor Lubberts is correct that we do have a timeline associated with passing this bylaw. Once the process started, there's 120 days to pass a designating bylaw. The deadline for that for council would be December 12th. We did try to bring this forward sooner, accelerate the process somewhat, so that this council who considered the original designating report could consider also the designating bylaw. But there was probably one meeting left in the future where we could consider the bylaw. I could offer that there is a 30-day appeal period as well for the designating bylaw, where if the owner was agreeable, we could attempt to meet before the deadline to appeal the designation.
Councillor Zanko?
Yeah, thank you. So, I mean, in that case, I will support this recommendation. I don't think it's fair to really dump this on a new council to say you have to, you know, look at this and make a decision before December when they're newly elected. So, unfortunately, I will support this. I do encourage you to make that appeal, but just wanted to note that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Noyes?
Thank you, Mayor Redekop. I'm of the same frame as I think as Councillor McDermott and Councillor Zanko, is that I thought, and I think we all are in agreement, that at the last time it came before us, we were discussing that there would be further discussion, and because of the timelines and that, there's certain things we had to move forward because of the new council and the meetings, et cetera, but that this did not negate the opportunity for further discussion and perhaps compromise. I understand too, the date of the tribunal or the hearing could be months off. So there is time, but I do want to, I guess it can't be in this bylaw, but to make sure that there is every effort made to have that dialogue and have those meetings with the owners to see if the compromise, or there can be a meeting of the minds before it actually gets to the hearing stage. So I am going to support this keeping in mind that that's my understanding, is that there will be attempts made to perhaps resolve the issue prior to the hearing being held.
Ms. Hanson has heard your comments, those of Councillor McDermott, Councillor Zanko. I don't think any of us are averse to there being opportunities for dialogue between parties. The Chief Administrative Officer is here, and I presume that we have your undertaking to follow up on that. Okay. Anyone else? Councillor McDermott, did you have anything further you wanted to add? Okay. So I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? And none opposed, that is carried. That was first and second reading, so Councillor Noyes to you for third and final reading.
Thank you, Mayor Redekop. Move of myself and seconded by Councillor Dubanow that bylaw number 136-2022 is given third and final reading to be signed by the mayor and the clerk under the corporate seal.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. Councillor Zanko, first and second reading for the confirmatory bylaw.
Yes, thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Noyes, that bylaw number 140-2022 to confirm the actions of council at its council and committee meeting held on October 3rd, 2022, and council meeting held on October 17th, 2022 is given first and second reading.
All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. Councillor Noyes to you for third and final reading.
Thank you, Mayor Redekop. Move of myself and seconded by Councillor Dubanow that bylaw number 140-2022 is given third and final reading to be signed by the mayor and the clerk under the corporate seal.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Oh, did you have a question, or are you just voting early?
Yeah, one last question.
Go ahead.
No, I'm good.
Okay. So that's carried. And on that happy note, before we get to Councillor Dubanow, I'm just going to say that it's hard to believe that 4 years has gone by and that we've gone through that stretch of time with the things that we've done, but it's been a real pleasure. Councillor Dubanow. Okay, you have a meeting scheduled for before the end of this term?
Yes, actually, I have 4.
Okay.
The Lincoln County Humane Society is meeting tomorrow night at 6 p.m. The Downtown Stevensville Business Group is meeting at 7 o'clock at the Conservation. On October 19th, the Fort Erie Not-for-Profit Housing is meeting at 11:30. I can't remember the name of the restaurant. And on October 26th, the Traffic Coordinating Committee is meeting.
What was the date for the meeting, the second meeting that you referenced?
Stevensville Downtown Business is at
Yes.
7 o'clock on Wednesday at the Stevensville Conservation Club.
Which is the 19th, which is the same night as the Fort Erie nonprofit meeting?
No, the 40 Erie non-for-profit is at 11:30
During the 19th?
on the 19th.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a very busy week.
Sorry, any other meetings that we should be made aware of? Just one. Yes.
Yeah, Your Worship, the Fort Erie Public Library Board has a meeting tomorrow at 4:30 at Centennial Branch. I think this will be our last meeting before the term expires and we have a new board. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Dubanow, now to you.
Last one of the term. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott that council adjourns at 6:58 p.m. to reconvene into a regular meeting of council on December 12th, 2022.
All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you very much, everyone.
Well, this is our last meeting. Goodbye to everybody.